Victor Morrow, known professionally as Vic Morrow, was an American actor, director, and producer whose career spanned stage, television, and film from the 1950s through the early 1980s. Best remembered for his intense screen presence and for starring as Sergeant Chip Saunders in the World War II television series Combat, Morrow built a reputation as a forceful, emotionally direct performer, often cast in tough, conflicted, or morally complicated roles. His life and career were marked by professional ambition, personal struggle, and a tragic death that had lasting consequences for Hollywood film safety. Early life. Vic Morrow was born Victor Morozov on February 14, 1929, in the Bronx, New York City, to a middle-class Jewish family of Russian immigrant background. His father, Harry Morozov, was an electrical engineer, and his mother, Jean Kress Morozov, was a homemaker. He grew up in New York during the Great Depression, a setting that helped shape both his toughness and his ambition. As a young man, Morrow was not initially destined for acting in any formal sense. Like many of his generation, he came of age in the years surrounding World War II and the Korean War. He attended Miami Military Academy for a period and later served in the United States Navy. His military experience would later inform some of his best-known dramatic performances, especially his role in Combat. After his military service, Morrow pursued acting seriously. He studied at the Actors Studio and developed a strong grounding in emotionally driven performance. He was part of the post-war generation of actors influenced by realism and the method tradition, which emphasized psychological depth and emotional authenticity. Although he did not become as closely identified with method acting as figures like Marlon Brando or James Dean, his work often reflected that same era's commitment to naturalism and intensity. Entry into acting. Morrow began his acting career in live television and on stage in the 1950s, a period when New York was still a central hub for dramatic television production. Like many aspiring actors of the time, he took small roles and built his reputation gradually. Early on, he demonstrated the qualities that would define him: physical force, streetwise energy, and the ability to portray men under pressure. His breakthrough in film came with Blackboard Jungle, 1955, directed by Richard Brooks. The film, which dealt with juvenile delinquency and violence in an urban high school, became a landmark social drama. Morrow played one of the troubled students, and while the role was not the lead, it gave him a national profile and associated him with gritty, realistic storytelling. Blackboard Jungle was controversial and influential, and it helped establish Morrow as a credible dramatic actor in Hollywood. He continued to work steadily in both film and television during the late 1950s and early 1960s. During this period, he appeared in productions such as Crime in the Streets, 1956, The Badge of Marshall Brennan, 1957, King Creole, 1958, opposite Elvis Presley, The Last Mile, 1959, Cimarron, 1960. These roles reinforced his image as an actor suited to hard-edged characters, rebels, convicts, soldiers, and men haunted by anger or desperation. Rise to fame. Combat. Morrow's defining role came in 1962, when he was cast as Sergeant Franklin Chip Saunders in the ABC television series Combat. The show followed an American infantry squad fighting in Europe during World War II. Running until 1967, Combat became one of the most respected war dramas on television. As Sergeant Saunders, Morrow played the weary but determined leader of a platoon of soldiers. Unlike the more simplistic military heroes common in earlier television, Saunders was often shown as burdened by command, emotionally scarred by combat, and forced to make difficult moral choices. Morrow brought gravity and realism to the role, helping the series stand out for its psychological seriousness. Combat was notable for its attempt to portray war as exhausting, dangerous, and morally complicated rather than glamorous. Morrow's own military background added credibility to his performance, and he became deeply identified with the character. For many viewers, he was one of television's definitive combat leaders of the 1960s. In addition to acting in the series, Morrow also directed several episodes, revealing his interest in working behind the camera. This experience expanded his creative ambitions and led to later directing projects, film and television work beyond Combat. Although Combat was the high point of his television fame, Morrow continued to work steadily after the show ended. The very strength of his association with Sergeant Saunders made it difficult in some ways to escape typecasting, but he remained active in both television and film for the rest of his life. Throughout the late 1960s and 1970s, he made numerous guest appearances on television and acted in films that often capitalized on his rugged screen persona. He appeared in projects such as Hawaii Five-0, The FBI, Police Story, Mannix, The Streets of San Francisco, Fantasy Island. His film work during this period included, A Man Called Sledge, 1970, Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry 1974, The Evil 1978, The Black Marble 1980. Morrow was especially effective in roles requiring volatility or authority. He often played military men, criminals, cops, or antagonists, but he was capable of considerable nuance. Even when playing hard characters, he could project exhaustion, loneliness, or moral complexity. Directing and producing. Morrow's work as a director reflected his desire for greater control over storytelling. In addition to directing television episodes, he directed the 1971 feature A Man Called Sledge, a western starring James Garner. He also directed and produced The Hostage Heart, 1977, a television movie. These efforts did not make him a major directing figure in Hollywood, but they showed his versatility and his commitment to expanding beyond acting alone. His behind-the-camera work suggested an artist who wanted to shape dramatic material, not merely perform it. Colleagues often noted his seriousness about the craft and his willingness to challenge material that felt false or superficial. Personal life. Vic Morrow's personal life was often turbulent. He was known as a strong-willed, intense man, traits that served him well as an actor but could complicate relationships. He married actress and writer Barbara Turner in 1957. The marriage produced two daughters, one of whom was Jennifer Jason Leigh, who would go on to become a prominent actress in her own right. Morrow and Turner eventually divorced in 1964. His relationship with Jennifer Jason Leigh was reportedly difficult and at times distant, especially during parts of her childhood. Though the details have often been discussed through the lens of family complexity and the emotional strains common in Hollywood households, Leigh later developed an acclaimed acting career independent of her father's legacy, though his reputation and tragic death remain part of the broader story surrounding the family. Morrow was also known for struggles that included career frustrations and personal disappointments as he aged in an industry that often prizes youth and reinvention. By the late 1970s and early 1980s, he remained a recognizable and respected actor, but he was no longer at the height of his fame. Twilight Zone, the movie and tragic death. Vic Morrow's life ended in one of the most shocking and consequential accidents in film history. In 1982, Morrow was cast in Twilight Zone, the movie, a feature film based on the classic television anthology series. He appeared in a segment directed by John Landis, in which he played a racist man who was forced to experience persecution across different historical settings. The segment was intended as a moral fantasy in which the character learns empathy through terror and reversal. On the night of July 23, 1982, during the filming of a scene in Indian Dunes, California, a helicopter accident occurred during a sequence involving explosions, low-flying aircraft, and two child actors, Micah Dinlug and Renation Yi Chen. The helicopter lost control after being affected by pyrotechnic blasts and crashed. Morrow and both children were killed instantly. Morrow was 53 years old. The accident horrified Hollywood and the public. It also sparked extensive investigations into film set safety, labor practices, and the use of children in dangerous filming conditions. Serious legal and ethical questions arose regarding the production, especially concerning the presence of the child actors during a hazardous nighttime shoot. Legal and industry impact. The aftermath of Morrow's death had a major impact on the entertainment industry. Investigations examine whether the production had violated child labor laws and whether proper safety precautions had been taken. Director John Landis and several others were tried on involuntary manslaughter charges, though they were ultimately acquitted. Civil lawsuits followed, and settlements were reached. More broadly, the tragedy led to stricter enforcement and reassessment of, on-set safety protocols, coordination between special effects teams and aircraft operations, regulations involving child performers, risk management and chain of command responsibilities during complex shoots. The accident became a landmark case in discussions about the limits of artistic ambition and the responsibility filmmakers bear toward cast and crew. Acting style and reputation. Vic Morrow was never a glossy movie star in the conventional Hollywood sense. His appeal came from intensity, realism, and emotional roughness. He had a face and voice suited to characters who had lived hard lives. Whether playing soldiers, convicts, authority figures, or villains, he brought a sense of lived-in conviction. His performances often carried, physical toughness, moral ambiguity, simmering anger, emotional fatigue, unexpected vulnerability. He was particularly effective in war dramas because he could communicate leadership without sentimentality. In combat, especially, he helped define a more psychologically grounded style of television heroism. Though he may not always be counted among the most celebrated actors of his generation in terms of awards or prestige, he earned enduring respect as a dependable and powerful performer. His work remains meaningful to fans of classic television, war drama, and mid-century American film. Legacy. Vic Morrow's legacy rests on two intertwined realities: his career as a formidable character actor and his tragic role in a watershed moment in Hollywood safety history. As an actor, he is remembered above all for, Sergeant Chip Saunders in Combat, his early breakthrough in Blackboard Jungle, a long career portraying emotionally intense, battle-worn men. As a public figure, he is also remembered because his death changed the industry. The accident on Twilight Zone, the movie, remains one of the most frequently cited examples of why safety oversight in film production matters. His daughter, Jennifer Jason Leigh, has gone on to achieve major acclaim, ensuring that the Morrow name remains part of American acting history, though in a very different artistic register. Selected filmography. Film. Blackboard Jungle, 1955, Crime in the Streets, 1956, The Badge of Marshall Brennan, 1957, King Creole, 1958, The Last Mile, 1959, Cimarron, 1960, A Man Called Sledge, 1970, Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, 1974, The Evil, 1978. The Black Marble, 1980, Twilight Zone, the movie, 1983, released posthumously. Television, Combat, 1962 to 1967, The FBI, Hawaii Five-0, Mannix, Police Story, The Streets of San Francisco, Fantasy Island. Death and Remembrance. Vic Morrow was buried at Hillside Memorial Park Cemetery in Culver City, California. He continues to be remembered by classic television audiences, film historians, and safety advocates within the entertainment industry. His life story is one of persistence, talent, and complexity. He rose from a New York upbringing to become one of television's memorable wartime figures, built a durable career as a character actor, and left behind performances that still resonate. At the same time, the circumstances of his death remain inseparable from his biography, serving as a somber reminder of the risks once tolerated in filmmaking and of the changes brought about by tragedy. Period.